Ciao, hi, hey guys. I'm just gonna check if I'm live on Facebook as well. Just waiting for Facebook. Hopefully, it won't take too long. I was just about to come on Facebook. Anyway, ciao, hi, hey guys. It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. And today I want to cover Inter. I finished part 4 of my plans for Juventus and that kind of thing, developing youth and that kind of thing. Yesterday, I finished that today from yesterday. Sorry. It was a bit behind schedule, but as usual. But anyway, I've got so many ideas, so I should always have things to do to prevent myself from being bored. I was thinking, how can you have a cure for loneliness or boredom? And that is to find things that keep you occupied, I guess. Same sort of thing. If you're busy being occupied with things, trying to take on goals, I guess you don't get lonely or bored very often. In fact, you probably crave being alone sometimes, in my opinion anyway. But anyway, today I want to focus on Inter Milan. I thought of a nickname. I was struggling to think of the title, but I could have done the usual, like my dreams and plans for Inter Milan or whatever. But in this case, I thought of like Winter Milan, like winter in Milan. It reminds me of, so I thought of a nickname, so I thought I'd call it that. Give it a bit of a quirky title, something a bit different. And hopefully I'll think of some different ideas today. I know I'm very repetitive, but I forgot to mention in my last video, before I get onto this list of pointers number 1 to 10. In fact, I might mention that at the end of the video, at the end of this video. But here goes. So number 1, as I say, I hope to focus on Inter Milan today. I was going to say in the intro and I forgot to say as a mad person, I guess, and I'm focusing on Juventus, which are the rivals, one of the main rivals, if not the main rival of Inter Milan. I guess Inter Milan's main rivals are either AC Milan or even Juventus. It'd be interesting to find from Inter Milan fans which ones they dislike or even hate the most. Similar with Juventus or AC Milan fans, like which are their biggest rival teams. Whether Juventus's biggest rivals are Torino or Inter Milan. Although I love for Italians, as I mentioned before, I love for fans of Italian football to support even their rivals when they play against non-Italian teams, to see Italian football get back to the top. But yeah, so I give it a nickname, Winter Milan, and I thought I'd put win in block capitals, so to see Italian teams like Inter Milan winning in Europe and internationally and doing better on behalf of Italian football. I think that'd be pretty cool to see. I'll drink to that, as I say. But moving on, number 2, one, I know I'm trying not to repeat myself too much, but as a creature of habit, I'd love for Inter to learn from other teams. Now, I said with Juventus, like, normally I'd say it's Real Madrid, I like the benchmark to learn from, but because I love for Juventus, given their name, which means youth, to focus on youth development for the national team as well. Although I love for Italian teams generally to improve their youth development and that kind of thing, facilities and youth development facilities and that kind of thing. But I love for, normally Real Madrid are the benchmark to learn from, but they could still learn from like Barcelona and even other Italian teams and like youth development and things like that. So I hope they'll learn as much as possible and develop and that kind of thing to see what they can do in the future. As certain numbers remind me of certain things for some reason. Like I think of point 1 as like starting things off, and then obviously you get better. And on that note, like I think younger players, I think of like point number 2 is like learning, and younger players can I think they should be given the freedom to make mistakes. As I say in business, some people say freedom to make mistakes and fail ultimately gives me the opportunities for success. But moving on, number 3, I'd love to see investors and sponsors supporting like football in Milan, encouraging young people to play football in Milan. And I'm sure youth development could save clubs money, so they won't have to go and spend quite as much. Obviously, they still could buy players, but so they won't have to spend quite as much on buying better players. There was a rumor in the past that the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, was looking into Inter Milan, and this rumor keeps going back, but I don't know if it's going to formulate. Some would argue if it was going to formulate, it would already do so by now. But maybe they could still sponsor like youth development facilities for Inter and for football in Milan generally, even, which could benefit both Milan teams or in Italy generally, especially. I'd love to do so with Juventus. I know they're the rivals, but of Inter. But it's something I wanted to say on Juventus, but that which I suppose I didn't think about until after the videos on Juventus, i.e. in hindsight. But I might cover them in the future for the rest of this month. But I'd love to see like McDonald's, Marks and Spencer's, and others that begin with or even companies generally, to sponsor like football pitches and training facilities and that kind of thing. I suppose most of the companies that be with them, I'd love to invest into AC ones, which I think I mentioned last week. But I think that was the 5th or 6th or whatever. But anyway, I think it was the 6th. But anyway, maybe it was the 5th. But anyway, I'd still love to see, like, for instance, McDonald's, as they sponsor football in Britain. I'd love for them to sponsor youth teams in Italy, and also provide football kits and bibs and just funding and sponsorship and that kind of thing. Like maybe the McDonald's in Milan. I've been to Milan, to San Siro. Funny enough to watch Inter versus Verona. I even remember the score. It's on my mum's birthday, but she took us, even though she doesn't like football, to watch the football. But it was 2-1 to Inter. I even remember that from whatever year it was. I can't quite remember. But she wanted me to get back into flying or keep flying, so I sort of stay away from my fear of flying and that kind of thing, so to keep practicing flying, so to speak. But yeah, maybe the McDonald's in Milan, or different companies, even generally Milan, could sponsor football and football development. I mentioned McDonald's because I suppose I'm thinking of alliterations, but also like McDonald's in Milan, but also how McDonald's sponsor football and that kind of thing, but also Coca-Cola, Lucasade, energy drink companies, maybe even fruit companies and healthy companies. I could say, like, how fruit is a healthy thing, and maybe they could sponsor their own football leagues, tournaments, cups and things like that in Italy. Number 4, I'd love for companies that begin with I actually to invest in Inter Milan, as it's Inter Milan. I suppose like IBM for Inter Milan, and maybe even the IMF to invest in Inter Milan, IMF for Inter Milan, that kind of thing. When I say 4, I mean investing into having shares in and equity in the club in this case. And I suppose international companies, as it's Inter Milan. But I suppose I want international companies to invest in Italian football teams generally. But I generally prefer the ones that begin with the same letter or letters, ideally, as I'm a bit too obsessed with alliterations. But I suppose what I stand for is to see Italian teams do well in Europe and internationally. So I suppose the point for me, just like when I heard that the PIF was looking to invest in either AC Milan or Inter Milan at some point, or even I think they even looked at Juventus and Roma. So I'm not sure how if something's put them off or they're going to do that. But I was at one point I was thinking, like, even though they're the rivals, like, as a fan of Italian football, as I say, I was thinking about how I would love for. I heard that Bernard Arnault was going to invest in AC Milan. Apparently that was some weird hoax, and the PIF was going to invest in Inter Milan, but that would have really helped Italian football a lot. So I would have loved to have seen that happen. But yeah, I'd love to see as much investment as possible, but also sponsoring like pitches and academies. I'd love to know what you think. As usual, I hope you don't be too harsh. But what you think on, like, would investing in academies be actually very beneficial in terms of clubs? Like, say, I don't know, if you spent 100 million on investing in an academy, although you'd have to be patient for the players to develop, that could produce so many great players over 5 to 10 years or whatever in the future generally. Whereas sometimes now to buy one player costs like 100 million. And if you get young players to be developed, then sometimes they will, I suppose you get them for a long time, and then even if you sell them on, you can benefit. So I'm sure it's basically even better value for money to develop younger players than just go out and buy players. But I'd love to know what you think. People out there who are into football, even like non-Inter fans, even just football fans generally, even rival fans, or even people who maybe even don't like or even hate Inter, or even people generally, but especially Inter fans, I suppose, are more attracted to this video, I'd imagine, hopefully. Although I welcome all viewers, of course, and I appreciate all viewers, but and all views welcomed and that kind of thing. But moving on, both type of views, obviously, i.e. people's opinions as well. But number 5, I would say my goal for Italian football teams would be to see that investment to help Italian teams to go back, hopefully to the top one day, to win the most Conference Leagues, Europa Leagues and Champions Leagues and World Club Cups and Super Cups between them, so to overtake La Liga and finally win the most and that kind of thing. I think that would be pretty cool. And I'd love to see Italian football develop more generally. Again, younger players being developed, benefiting the national team and benefiting club teams like Inter and Italian football team generally. Generally, that is. Number 6, as I hope that will benefit the national team, again, having more academies. Mostly it will benefit the national team, I guess, but hopefully it will even benefit Italian clubs if Italian football develops more generally. So I hope loads of sponsors will sponsor soccer pitches, or whatever you call them, football pitches, or whatever, footy pitches, or whatever, academies, and opportunities for younger people to play more football, more places for them to play, spaces and places for sport, in this case soccer specifically, places and spaces for playing and practicing, as I say. Footballs in parks and schools and things like that, to see how they can develop in the future in the next 5 to 10 years. Number 7, one I know I did mention, I was just thinking, I know I mentioned about how I try and think of different ideas, but numbers remind us of things. And as per usual, I'd love to see a partnership with Italian teams like Inter Milan and with Celtic, especially at youth level, to practice like 5 and 6 and especially 7-a-side pitches. Just like I'd love to see with other Italian teams like Juventus, Roma and others. But yeah, seeing how they can practice together. Number 8, so I'd love to know how you think, especially Inter fans out there, or people generally who might want to share your ideas, how do you think clubs like Inter Milan can attract more investment? How can Italian football more generally attract more investment to Serie A, sponsorship and that kind of thing, sponsorship and general investment as well, funding and that kind of thing for Serie A, the Coppa Italia and the Super Cup, or as I say, Italian football generally, clubs like Inter Milan and whatnot, how can they be more attractive towards investors? What are the legal things they could do to attract more investment? I think that would be interesting to know. So hopefully football fans, especially Inter fans in this case, will get involved in the discussion. I know I'm a mad fan of Italian football more generally, as I say, but for these videos I'd love for Inter fans to share their ideas, but also football fans generally and whatnot. I suppose if you're into football, it'd be easier, but even people who have a background in business might know a few ideas or think of a few ideas or whatever, to attract investment and sponsorship and general funding. Although with football you do have to be aware of some of the rules about like multiple club ownership and FFP and things like that. Maybe I should read on those rules. I don't read much, but maybe I should Google them. I don't know if I'd understand them, but maybe legal experts. Maybe at Serie A could have legal experts, and most importantly and best of all, I think, work with FIFA and UEFA and say what are all the legal ways, most importantly legal, that we can attract investment and sponsorship where we won't fall foul of FFP. I think it would make sense to consult them first before getting investment and falling foul of any rules which could lead to potentially like points deductions or other punishments, to avoid those, because obviously the point is to have more money to spend and to do better. In my opinion, more in Europe as well, but I'm sure Inter fans will want to do better in Serie A and the Coppa Italia and the Super Cup and things like that. But as a fan of Italian football more generally, I'd love to see them do better in Europe and internationally, and I'd love to see the Italian national team do better, especially in World Cups, or well, solely in World Cups. But I'll talk more about that another time, maybe. I know I've mentioned it before. But number 9, I'd love to know from Inter fans what are your priorities for the club and how the club can connect with the fans to ask what their opinions are on that kind of thing. And number 10, I know I said mainly that with sorry, just to go back to point number 9 again, how the owners, co-owners, investors, sponsors, basically shareholders, managers, I was going to say co-managers, coaches, coaching staff, directors of football, dietitians, or whatever, how can they come together to what's the best for Inter Milan, and how can they brand, maybe like use like the term Inter Milan to brand themselves better, and how can they sell more merchandise and things like that. Again, salespeople, entrepreneurs and whatnot could offer that advice, and maybe local business people in that side of Milan, or whatnot, or Inter fans around the world, celebrity Inter fans and whatnot, get involved in talking about that. How can fans connect together and talk about, again, all the legal ways, like creative ways to attract investment. Funny enough, Eliza Milano, if I pronounce her name right, Eliza Milano from Charmed, the actress, is a dyslexic and a fan of Inter Milan, and something like dyslexia and creativity, neurodiversity and creativity, and that kind of thing. Look at ways to attract investment, and look at how, and maybe they could donate some money themselves or invest into or sponsor the club. Famous fans and fans generally, and that kind of thing. And if they're not happy with the direction, they could buy out the club, or at least buy shares in the club and have more of a say. Look at how fans can have more of a say, or at least the owners can listen to the fans. So connecting all of Inter around the world together. And number 10, again, mainly with Juventus, I want to focus on youth development, but I'd also love to see that in Italian football more generally. So I wonder how they, in Inter's case, how they can get more of a balance, like most Italian teams. I'd love them to have more of a balance. With Juventus, I'd love them to have loads of young players and again be proud to contribute to the national team. But with other Italian teams, I'd love them to have a bit of a balance between older and younger players. And maybe Juventus could, to an extent. And I did mention it in the intro. I do wonder if people have the patience to hear me waffle. But I did say in the intro I wanted to mention it. But I'm trying to get around to avoiding my writer's block, which I want to do at the beginning of the year, this new year. Finally get my thoughts onto paper a bit better and more often. And also to I'm stuck in so many minds because I'm thinking about, I want to get my thoughts on, I want to write in a diary to plan, personal organizer. For some reason I've got 2 diaries and I'm struggling to even choose which one to write in, or whatever. Write on line paper, loose paper, not loose paper, line paper / loose paper or whatever. As a line / loose paper, and different sort of writing material. And I'm struggling to decide how all my notebooks. I suppose some people would say you need to minimalize and like be a minimalist and get rid of stuff, but I do really struggle with that. I don't think I'd feel comfortable. I feel like I'm trying to conform, or it just won't feel right. It's not really what I'd want to do, but yeah, it's difficult. That was with my mental problems. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and yeah, I am out. Peace and love.